Hello, hello.
Hello.
Attendance may be a little bit light today. There are holidays in places where we've got a lot of community members, so it may be somewhat of a quick meeting as a result. So we put the link to the meeting minutes in the chat. We usually get going about 5 after. If folks could please feel free to add yourselves to the chat and or add yourselves to the attendee list and or add anything you'd like to the agenda. We keep a pretty open agenda here. We'll give it a few more moments and we'll get started. Adding the link to the agenda in here as we go. And as I was observing earlier, it'll be a little bit of a late attendance today. We've got holidays in parts of the world where we have a lot of community members. So
cool, let's get started. So welcome to the Network Service Mesh meeting. We hold this call at every Tuesday at 8 a.m. Pacific. We also hold a PR reviews weekly every Tuesday, half hour before this call at 7:30 a.m. Pacific. We also participate in a number of calls, including the Cloud Native Network Function Working Group, which occurs every Monday at 1600 UTC, and the CNCF Tag Network, which occurs every first and third Thursday of every month at 9 a.m. Pacific. A couple upcoming events. We have KubeCon coming up in just under 2 weeks, yes. And we also have Cloud Native Telco Day co-located with a lightning talk being given by our friends from Ericsson. We have Open Source Summit North America, which will be in June 21st or 24th, and KubeCon North America, which the CFPs are currently open and are going to close relatively soon. So make sure you get your CFPs in. With that, our Twitter stats are set up towards, we've added an additional 21 followers and sent out 15 messages, and we have also reposted everything on LinkedIn as well. So please pick your way of receiving information. With that, we have the main agenda. So starting with the release has now been cut. Congratulations, everyone. We'll have to say it again since some of the people are out in the next meeting, which is perfectly fine. But with that, do you want to jump into some of the contents there, or should we jump straight into the 1.4 release schedule?
yeah, I think mostly it was just we had a bunch of small fixes that needed to go out in order to there were a bunch of small fixes that people wanted for a 1.3.1 release And so we wanted to make sure we accommodated that. And that did go out, I believe, on Friday last week. So it's out there. It should be available to folks.
Cool. We have the release schedule 1.4. So dates have not changed. They with that, we also have the review PR for the release notes and roadmap.
Yeah, so I just wanted to give a chance for folks to weigh in on this. Denise was good enough to pull together a PR for putting release notes in for 1.3.0, where we sort of call out standard compatibility issues and then talk about the major features that went out in that release. And then also for 1.3.1, similarly with the deltas there. And then looking at 1.4.0 in terms of forward roadmap planning. And I wanted to make sure that folks have had an opportunity to weigh in on this. We do have a variety of things on the roadmap, including dual stack examples, which I think we just merged, OVS examples, connecting to a remote interface without creating a VLAN on top, these sorts of things. Are there any other things that folks feel we should call out in the release notes or in the roadmap? Do folks need more opportunity to review the release notes and roadmap?
I haven't checked it completely, but I think there is some improvement for the policy rules in 1.3.
Oh, that is actually also a good point. Could I ask you to please go in and add a comment where you sort of summarize what went into 1.3 that we should add there?
Yes, sure. I will read first. Yeah, this note, and I will add a comment.
Yeah, this is why we ask these questions in the community call, because there's often a lot going on, and it's easy to lose track of one of the other things. Cool. So let's go ahead and we'll get those worked in, and then once we've worked that in, hopefully we can get this merged, and then we can make a big deal on Twitter and look at other things. Sound good?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a Spire issue on the agenda.
So this was one that we determined wasn't worth holding, so we could fix it in 1.4. It was less severe, but it has been fixed, and I'm currently waiting for a response on when it will make its way into a release, so we can make sure to upgrade to a release. So thanks, folks, for specifically Syslard for being so engaged with the Spire community. It's made it enormously easier to get these things fixed.
Okay, so with that, we have the SDK kernel issue.
Yeah, this was just in there because I know, Lionel, you weren't sure whether or not you were going to get a chance to fix this for 1.4. So just wanted to make sure we didn't lose the thread.
Yeah, I don't think I will manage to fix it for 1.4. Probably.
Okay.
I will try to, but I don't think so.
That's fine. So maybe in 1.4. That's our 1.5 rather.
Yeah, seems fine.
Okay. And then I did see, by the way, Laszlo, that we're now down to one OVS container from Command OVS Forwarder, which is fantastic. Thank you. And I wanted to make sure we checked in on what was going on with getting the OVS tests running automatically in CI.
Yeah, that's remaining. and I have to check the integration test if this other pull request can be merged or not with this fix on OES.
Okay. Just like I said, mostly just wanted to make sure we didn't drop, we didn't fall through the cracks.
Yeah.
So we had an item here on automatic update Aspire versions and Docker files. And I don't remember the full context. Does anyone else remember?
Yeah, I was the one who brought it up, and I put a few links because you asked me if it's just a kind of test containers that we are talking about, and I put just two examples you can find here. So you can see the Aspire version. It's quite an old one.
Oh, got it. And this is in the Docker files for the tests that we're running, for like unit tests that we're running in the system. Got it. I'm trying to think mechanically how we automatically update that, but we definitely should go at least manually update that.
Yeah, at least manually, of course, but
got it.
We should always use the same versions for every test. So that was the point here.
Yeah, no, I totally get that, and yes, we should. Yeah, we should definitely do that. So thank you for bringing that up. That should be fairly easy to get done.
Oh, as I know, we already updated it for forwarder VPP, for example, but I guess we probably missed forwarder OVS. I'll check it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Excellent. So issues with pure IPv6 cluster.
Yeah, this is my topic again.
Okay.
It's just a general question. If NSM, or specifically NSM 1.3, was tested on pure IPv6 cluster, not on dual stack, but on pure IPv6, because it's very important, because our Ericsson colleagues has a major use case for IPv6 only network. Right now, I cannot really much share too much more details on this, because just got the preliminary indication that during a test on IPv6 only cluster, Ericsson colleagues observed that using VLAN forwarder, the interfaces didn't come up. And we had similar issues about the VPP as well. So right now, it's just a question if it was tested already on purely IPv6 or not.
Yeah, so I don't think we're actually testing on a pure IPv6 cluster. I'm certainly open to doing that. I'm a huge IPv6 fan, and as we're all sadly too aware, if you don't test IPv6, something is broken. This is part of why, for example, if you look at the command forwarder VPP unit testing, all of it is testing both with v4 and v6 all the time. And this is part of also why I'm super excited about the work that Laszlo is doing with adding dual stack to the examples. So the question I actually have, though, is, my first thought was kind testing, but I don't think kind testing tests the VLAN stuff, or does it?
Is that a question to Laszlo or to me?
I don't know. Possibly.
Actually, you mean where they see this behavior? I think it was not on kind.
Right. So the obviously, because you're testing in real world scenarios. I guess the real question is, do we have tests that cover the kind of issue you're seeing that can be run on kind?
Actually, I need to check it with our colleagues at Ericsson because I've just brought the message now and need to check it further a bit. If we can reproduce it, if we could reproduce it even on kind, and we will see.
Okay, so
It was just a generic question right now. If we have tests in the community on purely IPv6 cluster, if not, then we will bring back more information on the observation.
Yeah, so I think the answer is we don't currently, but that's not because we're uninterested in doing so. It just hasn't bubbled up to the top of the priority list. And, you know, effectively, if we could do so in a reasonable way, that would catch the kinds of bugs that you're hitting, we would love to. And of course, the easiest way, if it is appropriate, is kind. But the real question is that going to catch the kind of problem you're seeing?
Oh, from my side, I can add that we already have a few tests for IPv6, for example, for VXLAN, WireGuard, MemaIF, and kernel mechanisms. So probably we need to get more information about your case to catch the issue.
I think what may be different here is that if your memory serves, the tests that we have for IPv6 to date are testing using IPv6 over NSM. They're not testing NSM itself on a cluster that is a pure IPv6 cluster.
Okay, I see that. Okay, we definitely need to check that.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a bit different.
Yeah, but you know, we're certainly quite open to that. But no, we don't happen to test it currently.
All right, thank you. Then I will follow it up with the colleagues and come back with more details.
Yep. All right. Cool. Awesome. I suspect this is you, Laszlo.
Yeah, I was the one who added the details because I'm not sure about if it is acceptable, this generalization. Maybe you have some suggestion.
I mean, what I think is going to be most helpful is to talk about why we're setting ACLs for the interface when we're using AF packet to attach to the host interface. Would that be helpful?
Yeah, but the ACL is just a part of the problem. Connecting this, making this cross connection without adding VLAN sub interface, it will make this VLAN breakout generic. So without
I see where you're going. So here's the thing that you have to be careful about with that. So if memory serves correctly, what you're doing with the VLAN mechanism is you're just using a VLAN subinterface under the node interface that we're attached to with AF packet. That's currently what you're doing, correct?
Yes, correct.
And you have circumstances in which you would like to be able to just directly interact on the interface, you know, on the node interface. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And so the trick is figuring out how to do that in a way that is not going to cause problems for the node itself. That's the tricky part. So if you wanted to just attach opportunistically to a secondary physical interface like a VRF, that's really easy because you don't have to worry about breaking the node when you do that. When you attach to the node interface, it can get very, very tricky because the traffic to and from the node has to act properly. So the question would be, how can you tell which traffic is intended for the node versus the traffic that's intended for the network service client that's connected out to that?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
that's really the question. How do you figure out which traffic is meant for that vWire in that case?
Yeah. I think we don't validate the configuration. So currently we can use the cluster primary interface and also the tunnel interface for VXLAN also, which is not a proper way.
Well, I mean, the way we get away with it for the tunnels like WireGuard or VXLAN is that we are very careful, and that's where the ACLs come in, to make sure that we only actually receive and process traffic for those tunnels. And the result is you don't get situations where, for example, we incorrectly send out, ICMP unreachable messages. So like one example of where this can go very badly is if you don't have a way to figure out which traffic is intended for you versus which traffic is intended for the host, then traffic may come in that's intended for the host. For example, various incoming TCP sections, requests, UDP packets. I first saw this involving DHCP traffic, and the host knows what to do with it. But when it arrives at VPP, it will send out various ICMP unreachable kinds of things that would confuse the other end of the connection. Also, it's probably not the case that you want your CNF to be able to snoop all of the traffic intended for the node. That seems like it would be a security issue.
Yeah.
And so I don't understand fully the use case here. I understand that some networks get very confused about Q and Q. That I get, but that I've seen a lot. What I'm really trying to get at though is how exactly, if you're sharing the node interface, how do you expect to tell apart the traffic that's meant for your CNF from the traffic that's meant for just generic pods on the node?
Yeah, I actually wondered if it make sense actually to exclude the primary interface from the setup, because I guess at least we only want to use it for secondary networking, to break out of something that is not the primary host interface.
Oh, if you're just using on secondary interfaces, this is super easy. So we actually already have something called, if you go look in the SRIO VVF stuff, if you look at that example, we're actually using a mechanism that I think we call null, where basically we cross-connect you to the outgoing interface, and you can proceed with the null case. Now, quick question, are you looking here at using an actual separate physical NIC, or are you looking at using an SRIO VVF off of a NIC as your secondary interface?
I think in the first round it will be a separate virtual NIC, but I cannot exclude the other use case for the future.
Yeah, no, we all know that someone's going to ask for it at some point. That's fine. I mean, eventually that question will come up. But what I was really at, the better version of my question is, have they gotten around to asking for the VF, or are people willing to settle for the physical NIC at this time?
I think the actual use case we have at this moment is the physical NIC, VNIC.
Okay.
virtual NIC because we have this issue with Q&Q in some of our test clusters that we cannot. We have a whole series of test clusters that will not work with our current setup with the VLANs for our product. So we are excluded from using those.
Yep. That's fine. So and I presume because you're using Mellanox NICs that you just want the kernel interface for that physical NIC. Effectively, your ideal world would inject the kernel interface for that secondary NIC into the pod would be ideally what you would want, correct? Because then you're not even having to play with AF packet.
This is a virtualized environment. It's not bare metal, if that make any sense for you. But it is. There are OpenStack running beneath.
Oh, okay. So you've got a thing, and the thing you've got, you don't see the SRIO VVFs, but all you see is a kernel interface, and you don't see the Mellanox-ness of it all. All you see is a kernel interface. Is the thing that you want inside your CNF a kernel interface at the end of the day?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a perfectly valid thing to want. I just wanted to make sure.
That would be the simple case for now. Yeah.
Okay. So have you looked at all at what we've done for the SRIO VVF example? Because I think when that is likely to be really close to what you need to do even a physical NIC. Because like one of the things that comes to mind is like if you're talking about a physical interface or what inside the VM thinks it's a physical interface, how are you handling the scheduling to schedule your workload to land someplace where you have that?
I think I'm a bit lost.
Right. So like there's a finite number of actual NICs, even in a VM, correct?
Yeah.
And so obviously, if you would like to get one of those, you don't want to share it with another CNF, correct?
No, I guess no, not in this case, no.
Okay, so there's a finite number of interfaces on the box, and you'd like to get one of them, and you don't want to share it. Then you've got a scheduling level problem, because if, say, for example, there are 5 of these secondary interfaces available on a box, you don't want to be scheduled there as the 6th pod on the box because we can't give that to you at that point, right?
But again, I don't want just an interface. I want a specific one because that is wired on the outside to go to some place to the gateway router or something.
Right. So basically, what I'm trying to figure out is, well, so are you actually? What I'm trying to figure out here is this problem looks suspiciously like a problem that we've already solved, and it may not be the same problem, and the same solution may not be applicable to it. But if it's isomorphic to a problem we've already solved, that might be a good place to look. Because when you say it needs to be connected to a particular interface because it has to go to a specific gateway, effectively, what I think you're saying is, it's, correct me if I'm wrong, it's probably not the case that you have one and only one interface that's connected to that gateway in the entire universe. You probably have a bunch of them, right, on different nodes, that kind of thing, right?
Yeah, actually, it's just for me, it's just something we order at our lab. People saying that we will need ETH2, and that should be connected to via link to this and that gateway. How it actually is carried through the infrastructure and the underlay network, that is kind of out of our hands. And here sometimes it's carried via VLAN, and there we get into this VLAN or Q&Q failure. So we just want to be able to attach directly to ETH2 for one.
Yeah, I mean, so that you can do that. I guess the thing that, so effectively what I think you said is, not every Ethernet interface is going to be good for a particular CNS purpose. It needs to be one that's wired up the right way.
Yes.
Now you can do this one of two ways. Either you can manually pick and choose which node, which interface for which CNF in a sort of a very hardwired configuration. That's one approach. The other approach you could take is to say, I need to be scheduled to some place where I can get a NIC that's going to be able to give me what I need, right? So, and that's much more of a Kubernetes approached way to it, because then you don't have to do very, very fine-grained manual orchestration of things. And so if you're interested in a way where you can say, I need a NIC that can give me the right behaviors, we did solve that problem for the VF case, and it would be easy to extend it here to the NIC case, because we're sort of agnostic about whether it's a VF or not. If you would be interested in hearing more about that, we could arrange some time to talk through what we've done there and see if it would make sense for the problem that you have.
Yeah, we definitely have that problem in general, I would say, and we have. I think there are other products also within Ericsson trying to actually solve this, how actually to get a more flexible way, because I guess at the end of the day, many of where we end up, the operator that ends up installing these kind of CNFs we provide, they more or less hardwire or manually configure the gateways to reach the right way into the cluster. So there's a whole lot of automation that actually are missing in this. There is a gap here.
Yeah, so let's do the following. I don't have any slides handy at this moment, but I could have some for next week, and we could go basically talk through next week how we're currently solving this and see if that approach appeals to you. Because it has the nice flexibility that you can, number one, it's utilizing the device plugin mechanism for scheduling. So you can basically say, I need a NIC, that can give me, one of a group of network services, and that has certain capabilities. Get scheduled to the place where that NIC is, and get given one of those NICs, and then wire it in.
It sounds really interesting, but I have a feeling you're now getting far away from a more quick solution for just getting in some way to get in a named NIC for our testing purposes, and that was the whole idea about this without the VLAN, without a VLAN. Solve our actual security issue.
Doing it without the VLAN is super easy. So effectively, once you have access to the NIC, you could certainly do it without the VLAN, but we could certainly get something that would do it without the VLAN, where we could actually opportunistically attach to a different NIC and pass that through the AF packet, through the VPP back to your pod. It's going to be less efficient than dropping the NIC in directly, but we could certainly, that's certainly a very doable thing, because most of the problems that I think we're hitting here are actually problems of trying to do something on the node interface. And what you're telling me is you don't actually really want to do this on the node interface, right?
Not the node interface, no.
Okay.
The only question is if we have to validate if the configured interface is a node interface, or just leave it for the configuration.
Yeah, I'm still confused. There's still a missing step in my mind about how you actually know which interface you want and how you're handling all the sort of end-to-end pieces of it. So
yeah, with and forwarder VPP, and then the VLAN case, we have a device config file, which mapping via label to an interface name.
Okay, that's right. Sorry, yes. So you've already got that part solved. So all you really have to do then is, so here's my inclination. as the simplest solution to this problem, which is, so there's a simple solution to this problem which is to basically say in the very first pass, getting to your point, Leaf, about let's do something fast that will work, is don't freaking put the node interface into your device config file to give you a label that you can use there. Because if you don't do that, then it's relatively easy to have a mechanism that will just, in fact, we have one, I believe, called the null mechanism. Well, it's relatively easy then to have something that would bind to that without needing a VLAN subinterface. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Specifically to use Laszlo?
Yeah.
So that should be fairly straightforward. And I think that, gets out of all these concerns about, ACL set for the interface, et cetera, because you just wouldn't set ACLs when you're binding to the secondary interface.
Yeah, it's right.
Okay. Was that at all helpful? I can't tell at this point.
Okay, thanks.
Cool.
Okay, so back on the agenda. We have a core DNS as a process instead of a sidecar in NSM with DNS use cases. So who added this? It's added by an anonymous bat.
I have added it. It's just a thought. I know that some meshes are using core DNS for DNS cases as a process. And I know that we are using core DNS currently as a sidecar. So question is it better to use process or it's better to use sidecar as we have at this moment? So do you have any thoughts?
Can you tell me what you mean by they're using it as a process instead of a sidecar?
Oh, we can just add binary of core DNS into our Docker image that is required to use core DNS, and we can start the process.
Me as a process inside the monitor, the NSC monitor container.
Yes.
Oh, no, that's certainly a very interesting approach. It would reduce the number of it reduces the number of moving parts. The question I would ask is, so other than reducing the number of sidecars we're running, what are the other benefits?
So I see one advantage that will hide some of internal deals that we are doing.
Mm-hmm.
But mostly both of brands technically are working equally. So
yeah, I mean, it's something to think about. I haven't thought about it enough to have an opinion. Do other folks have thoughts?
I see here one potential problem that, for example, if our pod is going restart, or our application, our container of the pod is going restart, it will restart both things, our application and also core DNS process.
Mm-hmm.
This is probably could be a problem. In the variant with sidecar, if our application is going down, the sidecar is still working correctly. I see at this moment only these two things.
Okay. Yeah, let's think about it and maybe come back to it next week. Sound good?
Yep.
Cool. That brings us to the end of our agenda. Do we have any other topics that people would like to discuss? Not hearing anything else. So with that, I want to thank you all for your time, and we'll see you all again at the same time next week. Take care.